it will work now. I don't know what's going on, but hopefully it will work right now. And if not, then I'll just have to figure it out. This is why it's important to be part of the community, right? Because sometimes tech doesn't cooperate, right? Many times, more often than not, technology does not cooperate with us. And so if you're part of the community, then you get the one that's guaranteed to work, which is the communities link. So join the community if you are watching this anywhere. I think Facebook is working. I think YouTube is working. I don't think Instagram is working. Right. So yeah. Right. That is unfortunate, but that's just the way it is. Right? So unfortunately, Instagram won't be able to get this, but everybody else will be able to. Okay, so welcome Lil, welcome Common, welcome everyone to your English class. I'm David, your favorite teacher, always here working for you, always here taking care of you. Right? And so yeah, you said there's a record of the old stream. So what do you mean? What do you mean by that? Maybe give me some more information about the record. Right. So yeah. So anyway, very good. So if you are here, then join the exclusive WhatsApp community. Like I said, this is where you can get all the latest information. Your lesson is guaranteed. If you're watching on YouTube or Instagram or any other platform, Facebook, then sometimes you get the stream, sometimes you don't. But the community gets the stream every single day. Every single time, it's guaranteed. Okay, so get it. You get exclusive content. You have weekly challenges, which, by the way, guys, if you are part of the community, make sure you stay on top of the challenge. This week's challenge is about using the present perfect and, to talk about experiences, things you've done. So I shared. I said, I've lived all around the world. I've traveled to 48 countries, right? I've been a teacher for 16 years. Can you believe it? Right. So we have a lot of challenges. We have a nice community. We have a speaking club, Zoom lessons. You can practice. You can talk to people. You can ask questions. So that's in the WhatsApp community. Let me know if you'd like to join. And it's very, very simple. All you need to do is send me a message and I will send you the link. So yesterday we had, I think, 5 new people join us. So yeah, some days there's lower, some days we have more students, but it's growing, right? The more it grows, the better it is. The more support, the more friends you have, the more contacts you have, the more fun it is, and the more I can give you, right? So definitely join this. It's growing. It's amazing. And of course, check out all my podcasts, all of my different channels. I teach English, Spanish, and French for my community, right? So it is very, very nice. I don't work I work for myself. So this community is my project. So you can join me there. All right. So we're going to talk about modal verbs, right? So we have a lot of different modal verbs, right? We have modal verbs of ability, of possibility, of permission, obligation, prohibition, offers, suggestions, requests, future probability, past probability. So all of these modal verbs, what modal verbs means is that they're verbs that work with another verb, right? So you say I can, but can plus a verb. You can't say, oh, just I can play, I can go, I can speak, right? So all of these. So first of all, most modal verbs are or are not followed by to, right? What do you think, guys? What do you think? Are they followed or not followed by to? So choose A or B right here. And let's see. Let's check it out. So just very general, right? We have some verbs. Is it like I need to, right? But is that a modal verb, right? I would like to. I ought to, right? Must. Do you say I must to go? I should to go, right? So think about this. Most verbs are or are not followed by the word to. Okay, choose this, guys. All right. So the correct answer is most modal verbs are not followed by to. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're saying, well, what about ought to? Well, ought to it's an exception, but technically it's not it's like semi-modal, right? Or have to. I have to work. It is a modal verb, but it's not a full modal. It's a semi-modal verb. Like supposed to. I am supposed to go. It is modal, but it's semi-modal. Or able to. I am able to help. It's a semi-modal. It's not a full modal verb. It's a semi-modal verb. And so with that said, then, most of them are not followed by to. All right. So they do not change form, or they do change form for different subjects. Right. So the subject is like I, you, he. Do they change forms? Do they change, for example, the normal verbs, not the modal ones, but the normal ones, they change, right? So it's not I be happy, you be happy. No, it's I am, you are, he is. It changes for every subject. But for modal verbs, does it change? Or is it always must? Must plus verb plus base. I must go, you must go, he must go, we must go, they must go. You see, so it's the same for all of them. All right, so they don't change form. All right, that's the introduction, guys. Now, let's look at some of these phrasal verbs that people love. People love these. All right, people love these. So look on, look in, look into, look on to. So this means, let's say, to research. If you want to research, you investigate, you examine. Which one is it? So if you are in the community, you can vote for this. So if you want to investigate, you want to examine, you want to research, you want to find out more, do you say look on, look in, look into, look onto, right? So let's say, oh, I need to find more information about this technology, right? So normally last week, the software, right, the Instagram software was working perfectly. Now I don't know what's going on here, right? I do not know what's going on. So we need to find out. We need to find out what's going on. I'm going to look it on. Right. I'm gonna look. Right. So they are. All right, guys. All right. Very good. So here, let me just make sure. Are there any other ones? Okay, let's see. Let's do that. And let's add a new stream key to see if this can work so that people can join us, right? Because everyone wants to join us. All right, so let's do that. All right, let's do that. Let's see if it is working. Okay. All right. It's not working. This is very odd. So here it's to look into. So I'm going to look into this whole software situation because it's so annoying. Right? I would like to be able to stream to Instagram, but for some reason it's not linking it. Right. So yeah, prepositions are important. They're extremely important. Now, you can, the reason why people make so many mistakes with them is that you can get by. You can make yourself understood even if you use the wrong one. So for example, this one is look into, means to, I'm going to look into the problem. I'm going to find out what the problem is. I'm going to examine. I'm going to investigate. I'm going to see what is going on. I'm going to look into it. But you could say I'm going to look onto it, and people will, kind of, look at you weird, but they'll understand, right? If you say, "Oh, I'm gonna," let's say you're on a bus or on the subway, and you get off at the next station. Say, "I'm gonna get off," but you could say, "I'm gonna get down." People will understand. I'm gonna get away. I'm gonna get. I'm gonna get even get off, get down, get. Yeah, you could, you could use the wrong preposition and still be able to communicate. That's my point, right? But focus on this. If you focus, you will be able to master this. So look into. Now, new technologies. Would you say emergeful technologies, emerging technologies, emerged technologies, or emergified technologies? These are the new ones, the latest ones, the ones that are coming out. Yes. Yeah, to get off. I'm going to get off at the next station. Right? Because you're on the train, you're going to get off it. Right? You're on it, you get off it. But a lot of people, I'm going to get down. I'm going to get down at the next station. Well, that's not right. But people understand. Right? Some people, they can use different ones, different prepositions, and they can get by. Right? But we need to use the correct one. So here it's emerging technologies. Very nice. So emerging technologies are important. Right? So now, when we look at media, right, the typical channels, right, the typical outlets, the networks that everyone knows that are right, are they the lame stream media, the shame stream media, The mainstream media or the painstream media? All right, what do you call these guys, right? These guys that, right, the talking heads, right? The ones, they say they're experts, but who knows? Right? Who knows? Who knows if they're always right? Right? Some people love them, some people hate them. Now, what is it? Lamestream, shamestream, mainstream, painstream. Yes. All right. So it is the mainstream. All right. So here, question for you guys. Okay. Let's ask a poll. I trust mainstream media. True or false? Tell me what you think. Some people, like I said, some people trust them, some people don't trust them. Right? It just depends where you are. Right? It just depends where you are. Right? Do you trust them? Right? You say, hey, these guys will tell me. Well, they will tell me the truth. Right? They won't lie to me. Right? The guys on TV can be trusted. Right? But some people wouldn't agree with that. Some people say, wait, not too sure. I'm not too sure about that. Right? It just depends where you are. Right? You got to choose for yourself. All right. Maria, you're not late. You're not early. You're right on time. Right? Oh, okay. So you need to do some research. Right? You need to do some research. You need to know who's behind them. Okay, that's a good starting point. That's a good starting point. So 66% of everyone who was polled says they don't trust mainstream media. Right? They don't. So these guys, right? NBC, CNN, BBC, MSNBC, ABC, CBS, Fox News, right? The mainstream media, right? The world is turning away from them. Before they had a monopoly. Now, people are looking elsewhere, right? So, sentence, you should look into investing in emerging technologies like AI, like cryptocurrencies, like blockchain, like Web3 before they become mainstream. Right? So you should look into, you should find out, you should investigate, you should read, right? You should, try to learn, right? Or you should look into investing. Right? You should try to invest. You should look into investing in emerging technologies before they become mainstream. Right? That's just a very simple proposition, right? Because once they're mainstream, once everyone knows about it, then you're late. Right? You want to get early. All these, now it is speculative, right? Because we don't know who's going to be the Web3 star, right? So you can, but if you can see what the emerging technologies are, then you can look into those investments. You can look into the leaders, and then investing in them could prove to be profitable. Now, question for you guys. Okay, so have Or are you currently invested? Are you currently invested in emerging technologies? Yes or no? Right? Yes or no? Are you currently invested? Do you have some crypto? Right? Do you own some Palantir stock? Right? It's been one of the darlings, in the last few months. Right? Robinhood is also, it's going on a tear. Right? It's pumping. It has been pumping. Right? Um, right. So these are technologies. Right? Maybe some other ones. Right? Some other blockchains. Yeah, yeah. Of course, you can get your ETFs. Right? If you want, if you want to kind of balance it out, it's you can just invest in an ETF, right? But if you believe in, if you research and if you have time to research into a specific project, into a specific company, then you know some people like that, right? Some people like to concentrate their bets. Right. But for the typical retail person, right, maybe, just get an ETF or just get, invest in a fund, right? And they can manage your investments for you. Right? It just depends, what kind of profile, what kind of risk profile you have. But right, I like to look into different companies, read up on the trends, what's happening in the world, and then make a few concentrated bets on the future of technology. Right? That's my risk profile. Now we're going to talk a little bit about risk. Right? Now, this another phrasal verb. Right? Do you say take on risk, take up risk, take through risk, take in risk? Right? So that means, well, you could use risk as a verb, like to risk. I'm going to risk, or I'm going to take plus preposition. Right? I'm going to take on risk, take up risk, take through risk, take in risk. Right? So which one is it, guys? Which one is it? And right, so risk is important. Well, I've mentioned it before in business, even in investments. Let's say, like Common was saying in the chat, people like their ETFs, right? There's lower risk because it's not one stock, one company. It's a basket of stocks. Right? Sometimes it's a split, right? Sometimes it's so different markets, right? Different sectors, and that can influence, right? So there is less risk, right? But the rewards, right, are also limited. So the higher the risk, the higher the reward. You have to ask yourself, well, what is your risk profile? Do you prefer to limit the downside, but also when you limit the downside, when you limit the possible losses, you also limit the upside, right? So here again, it's the same concept. Now people say, "Oh, I want to make, crazy gains without any risk." but that is essentially not possible, right? So take on risk, right? So you need to take on risk, right? So, for example, Bitcoin. I love my Bitcoin. Great technology. I think it's the few. I believe that in the future, many companies and many governments will have Bitcoin on their balance sheet. That it's going to be a reserve asset, like a digital gold. And so now it's pretty much accepted. Everyone from the president to the CEO to all the hedge funds, all the big companies, they say, yes, we believe in this. Now, a few years ago, there was a higher risk. Right? It was a bet. Right? That's why people made such crazy returns on Bitcoin, because they saw the future. They say, oh, in the future, this cryptocurrency will be part of a traditional, conventional, mainstream portfolio, and it became true, right? So the bet paid off, right? So now there's still, of course, there's always risk, but there's less risk, right? So look at this guy. He might built, he might has built, he might had built, he might have built a successful business if he had taken more risks early on. So this is more advanced, guys, right? This is more advanced, but think of it. Now, he is he is a successful businessman, right? But he says, I didn't take on enough risk. So he took on some risk, but he didn't take on that much. Right? He was safe in the building of his business. So now he's in his 50s and he's looking back and he's speculating on the past. Right? He's saying, well, I wonder if I had taken more risk or taken on more risk early on, right? So here you say take risk or take on risk. They're both good. If I had taken on more risk early on in my career, I would have, or I might have, right? So here, would have says that it's 100% sure, but it's not 100% sure, right? You don't have a crystal ball that tells you, okay, this would have happened. So that's why you use the might. He might have become even more successful. He might have built a successful business, $1 billion company. Now he built $1 million company, so it's not bad, but he might have built $1 billion company if he had taken more risks early on. Right, so that's a lesson, guys. Right, if you're young, that's the time to take more risk. When if you're in your 50s or 60s, maybe it's time to be a little bit more conservative, right? Because you have less time. If you're in your 20s and you've got a little bit of spare money, why not get some crypto? Why not get some Solana, right? Some Ethereum, right? Or some smaller projects. Now, if the market crashes and something terrible happens, well, they'll still be around. in 10 years, right? 5, 10 years, they'll still be around. Bitcoin will be around, right? It's not the end of the world. But if you're 60, right, maybe you can't wait 10 years. So that's why you need to be a little bit more defensive, right, in your business dealings, in your investments. Now, here, AI amplifies whatever you are. So people say, well, AI will make us dumb, right? Some people say AI will make us smart, right? I want to ask you guys what you think, right? So think about this. AI, artificial intelligence, will make us smart or dumb. Choose wisely. Choose wisely, guys. All right. Let's check in on everyone. Let's check in on everyone here. All right. All right, guys. That is fantastic. So AI will make us smart. AI will make us dumb. 50% of you said smart, 50% of you said dumb. Well, that is an interesting proposition, right? Because what I think, I have a very nuanced. Oh, let's see. I have a very nuanced kind of answer to this, right? So AI amplifies what you already are. So if you're dumb, AI will amplify it, right? AI will make you even dumber. If you're smart, AI will amplify that. You'll become even smarter, right? So a lot of these technologies amplify, right? They exacerbate, right? So if you're creative, right, then AI will unleash a whole different world for you. AI will give you the tools to to take your creativity to the next level. All right. Exactly, Maria. That is true. Um, yeah. Well, we'll be able to access information. That's true, right? But will you be able to use information? Right? Will you be able just because you have more information doesn't mean you're smarter. You have more information, but especially in this information war, right, where you don't know what information is true and which one isn't, right? So we have a lot of information in the world today, but not everyone is a genius, right? And a lot of studies show that our cognitive functions are declining. I know that's not what you want to hear. I know that everyone out there wants to believe that everyone on the face of the planet is a genius. I know that's what you want to hear, guys, but I'm here to give you a realistic outlook. Not everyone is a genius. Not everyone is Einstein. And but we're living in the information age. Right? We're just, we're who knows if we're halfway through. I still think we're in the beginning stages of the information age of the internet. So many tools, right? But scientists believe that cognitive functions are declining. It's not me saying it, it's scientists, right? And so this leaves us with a very compelling question. Right. Will AI help us or will AI destroy us? Well, I'm an optimist. I'm also a realist, but I'm an optimist. So, my sentence for you here, this idea that I like to share with you is don't must rely, we mustn't rely, or we must not rely, or we must don't rely too heavily on AI. Right. So this doesn't mean don't use AI. A lot of people out there, they misinterpret my words. Because we must, right? So it's a negative of must, right? Do you say we don't must, we must not, or we must don't rely too heavily on AI, or we could lose essential human skills, right? So here, AI is great. AI is great. It can help you, right? But what happens if you let AI do everything for you, right? If you never build the skills, right? Because why should I learn to write? AI will do it for me. Why should I learn to read? AI will read for me. Hey, you know, why should I learn to do anything? Right? Even such skills as memory. Memory is a muscle. This is what people don't understand. Right? All your cognitive functions, your memory, short-term, long-term memory, if you don't work on your memory, if you don't memorize things, how do you expect to have a functioning brain? Right? So people say, well, our memories are declining. And then it's like, well, why do you think so? Well, I don't know. Well, I do know. It's because we don't need to memorize anything. In the past, at least, we had to memorize phone numbers, we had to memorize different things. Now it's all right here, guys. It's all right here. And our brain says, well, if you don't use it, you lose it. If you don't use it, you lose it. Right? So we must not rely too heavily on AI. Now, again, use it. I'm not telling you to not use it. I say don't, use it, right? But don't rely too heavily on it. Don't forget about your human skills, right? Because if not, you're just going to be worse than a couch potato, right? You'll be a zombie, a drone, right? And we don't want drones. We want human beings, right? In the future, people, blah, 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 adapt quickly to changes in the job market caused by automation. So let's look at this one, guys. Let's look at this one. Okay. People, would you say, people will adapt quickly, will adapt quickly, will have to adapt quickly, or will to adapt quickly. All right. So choose the correct construction here. Right, so changes are coming. Changes in the job market are coming. Right? They're coming. A lot of jobs will disappear. Now, though, there will be a few new jobs, right? But you see, this is where your cognitive functions, right? Your ability to think, right? To analyze, to strategize, these will come in very, very handy in the future, right? Because you'll have to make decisions quickly. You'll have to pivot, right? You'll have to, it's this whole idea of going to school and having a job guaranteed, waiting for you as soon as you graduate. You can stay in the company forever, just climb up the ladder and retire and live happily ever after. Right? The American dream. The American dream is dead. All right. Now there's a new American dream. Right? So you're writing your own dream, but it's not the dream that your elementary school teacher sold you on. Yes. Well, Maria, some people would disagree with you. Some people would disagree with you that in in many ways, we have become more stupid thanks to the calculator. Not everyone, maybe not you, maybe not your friends, but just look at the levels in schools. I mean, basic math are, just look at the test scores and look at the standards. And I know because I'm a teacher. I worked in the best schools, the best school systems. I did the top research, education research, the best funded research for universities, for institutions, educational institutions. And I can tell you, the results speak for themselves. Now, I'm not going to tell you guys that we are all dumb because you're not. If you're watching this, you're probably not. But the data speaks for itself, right? People were able to calculate better in the past when we didn't have calculators. That is a fact. That's a fact. If you look at some of the tests, elementary, and there's been a lot of these studies, right, where people in the late 19th century, you know, children took math tests, algebra, basic algebra, and then they gave the exact same test to kids 100 years later, right? Kids today, right? So in the late 1800s and early 1900s, right? They took, okay, we're going to take a first world country, let's say Germany or France or the UK, and let's see what their math skills are, and the exact same test today with terrible results. Those are the facts. That's what the data says. Now, of course, people say, well, I have an iPhone. I have ChatGPT. I'm so smart because I can do this and then, get information that I can read. So I sound smart. But are you really? Right? Are you really? Right? And so, that's language skills, right? Language skills. Just navigation skills. People get lost all the time. Social skills, right? Are we doing better with our social skills? Not. All right. So, but you guys are different. If you're in class, you guys are smart. Okay. So I'm not talking about you guys. I'm talking about the other guys, right? I'm talking about the data, right? So yeah, well, I mean, it's it is a common occurrence, right? That right, but maybe in some ways, right? In some ways, the we're getting, you know, smarter. You could say, technologically smarter. We can use these tools, so that's true, right? So it's not completely, completely bleak, right? But in many ways, it is true, right? It's undeniable, right? It is undeniable, right? Right. The data speaks for itself, guys. That just check out the data, right? That's the evidence. I don't need to convince you of anything. I can just present you the data, and the data will speak for itself. Right? I don't need to convince anyone. Right? I'm just here presenting the facts. Right? But of course, people don't like to hear it. People want to believe that everyone is Einstein. So here, if you order something online and you follow it, right? You say, okay, now it's here, then it's being delivered, right? It's at the warehouse. Do you say slack your order, track your order, crack your order, or snack your order? All right, so which one is it, guys? All right, which one is it? Mm, right, it's true. It's true, right? A lot of our skills are being destroyed. That is a fact, right? Social skills. Social skills are going down the drain. Are going down the drain. I've seen it. My mom, she's been a university professor for 40 years, and she has seen it with her own eyes, right? The rapid decline. Now, Common says, well, everyone always talks about the decline of the younger generations, right? And there are, and in some ways it's true, but not always, right? Not always. In many ways, sometimes there are periods where the world as a whole, right, progresses, where people improve. And there are periods of time where the opposite takes place, right? And so, in terms of many of the basic skills, right, we've lost many of those skills. Have we gained new skills? Of course we have. Of course we have. Right? We can build new things. We have this digital intelligence, right? We can figure out how machines work. We can build systems. We can code. We have a whole new dimension, right? That technology and computers have opened up a whole new dimension in our minds. But that doesn't mean that we didn't lose some skills, right? We lost some skills, but we've gained some new ones, right? That is so here it is to track, right? So to track, so you can track your order, but you can also track your you know you can track your health, right? Your well-being. So here, they could work, they could working, they could be working on a new app that helps people track their emotional well-being. Right? So I read this the other day, and it was very interesting because our emotional well-being, our emotional intelligence, our EQ is actually, according to some psychologists and sociologists, at all-time lows. All-time lows, right? That we're very deficient in our EQ, right? That's our emotional coefficient. We have IQ and there's EQ. Don't get confused, guys. So our emotional well-being, our wellness, how healthy we are emotionally, right, a lot of experts believe that we're we're not doing, you know, that well on that front, right? So on that, you know, on that front, right? There's always one of the good things about the business world is that we can provide solutions to problems. So basically, what business is problem, solution, problem, solution. Find the problem and then offer a solution, right? So some people, some technologists are looking at applications or look at technologies that can address this emotional crisis that we're going through, right? It's the level of stress, the level of isolation, right? Never before seen. Never before seen. All right. Now, so they could they could working, or they could be working. Good job. They could be working on a new app that helps people track their emotional well being. Now, it's not out yet, but they could be. So, could plus be plus work, ing. So, a lot of people say they could working. Don't forget the be. They could be working. Hmm. All right, let's see. Let's see right here. Okay, some nice comments. Let's read this comment from Common. The perception that older people have about younger generations often stems, so this perception often stems from a variety of factors: generational differences, changing values and norms, technology gap, communication styles, cognitive bias, nostalgia, and idealization. Yeah, that's a good copy paste right there. That is a good copy paste, you know, comment, and it's true, right? All these factors do influence, but just because they influence doesn't mean it's not true. Does Sometimes there are kernels of truth. It doesn't mean that all young people are mentally deficient and all old people are geniuses. Of course not, right? But and of course, nostalgia does play a role, and people say, "Oh, in the good old days," right? Everyone talks about the good old days, but right there's good things and bad things, right? But we can't just take another extremist opinion that says everything that's new is good, and that we're always, that every everything that is emerging is beneficial, that we're doing better in every single aspect of society across the board. That is also not true, right? We're doing well in some areas, we're doing not so well in other areas, and that's okay, right? We need to figure things out. We need to be honest with ourselves. If kids are underperforming at school, if their cognitive abilities are declining, that is an issue that we need to be honest about. We can't just say, "Oh no, just keep playing playing on the tablet, you know, it'll be fine. You're a genius. You're the next Elon Musk." Right? No, we need to be honest, right? Especially people in leadership positions, especially politicians and CEOs and directors of these institutions. We need to be honest. We can't just say, "No, no, old people always criticize young people. It's fine. Young people they're all Einsteins. We're doing great, guys. Everything is perfect, right? No, we need to be honest, guys. And the data speaks for itself, right? You may want to cut down on screen time or to screen time, right? Which one is it? Which one is it? Right? So this is just basic, right? Basic, right? Health, screens. I love my screens, but I am conscious of the amount of time that I spend in front of the screen. I am conscious of my screen time. So you may want to cut down on or to screen time if you're aiming for a better work-life balance. Cut down on. On. Don't forget this. If we had focused more on innovation, so you focus on. If we had focused more on innovation, we might not have fallen behind in the market, right? Innovate. That is the key, guys. We got to innovate. Got to think ahead. All right. So you fall behind. Those who don't innovate, right, fall behind. Startups must come up with creative solutions to stay ahead of big tech companies. So the tech giants, right, they're playing more defensive, right, because they're trillion-dollar companies, literally. So many times their risk appetite is less, but startups, they have a high risk appetite. That's why they come up with creative and risky solutions, right? Whereas, big tech companies, many times they're in the business of buying up startups. So whenever it's easier for them to to pretty much shop for ideas rather than innovate themselves. So that's what we see with big tech companies, that they're not really in the business of innovating. They don't innovate as much as they are, brokers, right? They buy. Well, they find startups that are doing well, that have some good ideas, that have good products, that are finding or coming up with creative solutions, and then they buy them out, right? That's the business model. All right. Can money truly make us happy, or should we place more value on meaningful relationships? Right? Can money truly make us happy, or should we place more value on meaningful relationships? What do you think, guys? What do you think? Liliana says not everything that is new is good, and not everything that is old is bad. That's true, right? And the opposite is also true. Not everything that is new is bad, and not everything that is old is good. Of course, we got to, we gotta be nuanced in our thinking. Maria has high hopes for the future. Yeah, I do too, right? But just hoping is not a strategy, right? We got to hope, but we also got to address the issues. You can say, oh, I hope I'll be successful and I can stay in bed all day. Well, I'm not gonna, I can have all the hope in the world, but if I don't get out of bed, then it is meaningless. By 2040, people might be living, so it's in the future, might be living in smart cities where everything is connected and automated. What do you think about that, guys? Are you excited about this automated future? Right? Or are you scared? Right. All right, guys. So join the WhatsApp community today. This is your invitation. Drop me a message. You can join exclusive content, a community, challenges, speaking club, Zoom lessons, direct access, activities, games. It is the best way for you to get results, real results, and master the art of speaking. Right? Because if you want to learn to speak like a pro, you got to join a community. You've got to participate. You've got to come to class. That's the only way you can do it. Okay. So have a great day, guys. Take care. Very happy to see you in class. All the best to you. Wish you the best. And I will see you guys soon. Okay. Join our community and keep learning with us. All right, guys. Take care. And as always, bye bye.